and welcome to Unknowable, the podcast where we talk about all things mysterious, unusual, or unknowable. I'm Justine.
And I'm Gray. This week, we are talking about a vaguely Christmas-themed episode.
Yeah, it's date-wise.
Date-wise, yeah. So it kind of started around Christmas, 1965.
Yep.
It is the flap of UFO activity in Warminster, England, also known as The Thing.
Yeah.
The Warminster Thing.
Apparently not that uncommon of a way to reference a UFO sighting.
A thing?
Yeah, The Thing.
I had never heard it before this.
I hadn't either. But one of the articles that I read said that there had been some other very small instance of like a couple sightings of something in the UK that had been referred to as The Thing.
It's a British thing.
It's a British thing.
Interesting.
So
we here in America call it a flap.
Call it flap.
Just like the Mothman.
Which, Mothman.
Yeah. Flap.
Mothman is pervasive.
Oh, yeah.
In everything we do.
People ask me, what's your favorite, like, just all-time favorite, like, unknowable topic? Mothman. By far.
Yeah. It's still one of our most popular episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is episode 34 today.
Yeah.
And still Mothman is like...
number one.
As far as downloads go...
For a reason.
It's up there. Yeah, for a reason. Everybody knows Mothman.
Mm-hmm. If you don't know Mothman, go back. Episode number one of Unknowable. Mothman.
Yeah, learn all about Mothman. It's good. But this similar topic, kind of.
Sure.
Sort of. They're all kind of related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unknowable.
So yeah, the Warminster thing is, again, basically a very vague reference to this entire flap of UFO sightings and hearings, which is the interesting aspect of this.
Exactly. That's what fascinated me.
Yeah. So Warminster is, this got a little confusing for me.
Yeah. Jesus.
A town and a civil parish, which a civil parish is apparently a territorial designation. This is, thank you, Wikipedia, which is the lowest tier of local government below districts and counties.
Ah, now it all makes sense.
Yep. In western Wiltshire? Don't know.
Close enough.
England. Current population, 17,000.
Pretty small.
Up from its post-World War II population of about 10,000.
Wow.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Geographically, if you're curious about where it is, because I was, about 100 miles southwest of London.
Okay.
Really not far.
Not far.
Like, that's like Portland to Boston.
Right. Okay. Oh, yeah. Not
Warminster to London.
Interesting.
Curiously, it's about 15 miles from Stonehenge.
Coincidence?
Coincidencia?
We'll find out.
You'll find out. So the coincidencia is...
I did not get that reference.
Like, if you could see the look that Greg just gave me of like...
Just like, oh,
it was like the most earnest smile of just like, yes.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm trying.
There's this weird meme from forever ago that shows a close-up of a PlayStation controller really up close, like the texture of it, and then a close-up of a dog's nose, and they look identical, and it's like coincidencia, and it's got the Spanish, like, you know, the upside down question mark and then the regular one. And Nate and I had a period of time where we thought that was like the funniest thing, because I think we found it because Nate always referred to Mukau's nose as like a little PlayStation controller. And then I like Googled it and I found that and I was like, oh my God.
There we go.
So now sometimes I just say coincidencia.
I like that.
Yeah, it's good.
It's good.
So Stonehenge, yes, which that will probably be an episode of its own.
Oh God, yeah.
At some point, because Stonehenge is weird. There's a lot of like weird supernatural stories.
I think there's a ley line that goes right through it too.
I think there might be.
So,
which means that there's a ley line pretty close to here too. So this is a very like run-of-the-mill kind of sleepy small town. Everybody knows each other.
Yep.
Very common in these types of stories, honestly.
Oh yeah. I don't know if that makes it more credible.
I know, right?
Because like I feel like I guess it would be more susceptible to like mass hysteria because everybody knows each other.
Yeah.
But also there's that sort of sense of like nobody wants to like stand out and like be the crazy one talking about UFOs.
Exactly.
So I feel like it's almost more credible too.
Yeah. It's a very I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I don't know if that makes it better or worse.
Right.
Because there's a lot of like similar examples like this of small towns that became known for something weird.
Right.
And yeah, I think it could be easy for people to kind of influence each other more strongly in a small, tight-knit town.
Right.
As opposed to, like, speaking again of Mothman.
I was going to say, like, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, for example.
Exactly. And then the opposite side of that, the more current day, like Chicago Mothman sightings.
Yep.
Which, yeah, we were just talking before we started recording about maybe doing, like, update episodes on certain topics.
Yeah.
Could be worth revisiting Mothman just for the Chicago sightings alone.
Yeah. Do you guys want to hear update episodes?
Yeah.
Let us know.
Let us know, because we were thinking there's a lot of, like, we just did the national parks episode, which has been very popular. And, you know, there's tons of parks, there's tons of disappearances. We could totally do another episode.
Oh, yeah.
Mothman, like various missing people or, you know, murders. Like there's always more to be talked about. So
the Zodiac Killer, too, that we did an episode on, they just, they caught the Golden State Killer by putting his DNA on some ancestry website, and they just submitted the Zodiac Killer's DNA to the same website. Who knows, maybe in 6 months we'll have to do an update on the confirmed Zodiac Killer.
Oh no, but then it's knowable.
And it's knowable. Oh shit,
that ruins it.
Well, interesting. Are we gonna have to do an episode called Now Knowable?
Oh shit. Wow. I really hope none of these things become knowable.
I know. So far so good.
It takes the magic out.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So anyways, Warminster, this very tight-knit town, becomes known globally for this flurry or flap.
Nice.
Flurry seems like Christmas.
I like flurry, yeah.
Christmas theme.
Exactly, there we go.
Flurry of UFO sightings from kind of like the mid-1960s to the late 1970s. So they actually really started earlier than that.
Right.
Some say there's always been sightings of weird things around then.
Yep.
But definitely started like in the 30s, somewhere around, and then like this 1965. Sorry, I can hear my son like doing his frustrated grunt downstairs. He sounds like a dinosaur. So this was kind of as is often the case with things like this, there's like one first sighting that isn't really the first, but it's the first one to get like national recognition.
Exactly.
So that's kind of what this was. So that first day was Christmas Day, which is why this is a Christmas episode, released on Christmas Day.
Whoa.
So Merry Christmas, guys.
If you celebrate Christmas.
If you celebrate, or Happy Holidays, or Happy December.
Yeah.
Happy Winter.
Is it the equinox? Is it December 21st the equinox, or am I thinking of June 21st?
I have no idea.
It's the solstice. Well,
happy whatever. Just whatever you're feeling.
Yeah.
Happy that.
Happy winter.
Yeah, happy winter. If you hate winter, then just happy almost 2020.
Happy episode 34 of Unknowable.
Yeah. Happy end of the decade.
Yes. Hey, there you go.
Oof, man.
That 2020 vision.
Don't even. Happy impeachment?
Yeah. Hey, there we go.
Yeah.
All right. That's knowable.
That is knowable. That happened. These sightings were first reported in the Warminster Journal.
Yes.
And local journalist Arthur Shuttlewood.
Great name.
Great name, and the first of many weird names you'll hear in the story. I shouldn't say weird. Different
unusual names. For America.
Unusual for America, and just a very high percentage of not bizarre or like outright funny names, but just like interesting names. I feel like every person in this story has a name that you're like, huh.
Yeah. Very British.
Yeah. He was kind of instrumental in making this phenomenon national news, despite his first article, entitled Bell Hill Mystery, Weird Noises on Christmas Morning, was kind of just buried in the back of the paper.
Title's a little on the nose.
It is. Really is. But a year later, there had been like over 1,000 reported sightings of UFOs in the town. And this kind of continued again from 1965, that first Christmas Day, until 1977. And a lot of people still to this day like see Warminster as kind of synonymous with UFOs.
Some people have called it the Roswell of England.
Yes.
So
there are like, I think, multiple murals in the town. Oh my gosh.
Wow. That is not a dinosaur.
I kind of hope you can hear that. I kind of hope you can't.
Yeah.
That is not the sound of him pooping, which a lot of people suggest. It's a whole different thing. Yep. He just has a thing now where he just does this dinosaur grunt when he's displeased by anything, which could just be him being bored too.
Hey.
Anyways. So yeah, that's the gist of this.
Yeah.
There was a weird sighting / hearing Christmas Day. Got in the paper, blew the hell up.
It really did. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I put a lot of stock and faith in these first few sightings because they were just like the Mothman sightings.
Exactly.
Where the first few are more credible because there wasn't the sort of like fanfare around them, and there wasn't any sort of like guaranteed audience if you were to report them. So I feel like they're more authentic, whereas the later ones could be attributed to mass hysteria or people just like hoping to gain some small like notoriety in their small town.
Right.
But thousands of sightings in a 17,000 person town is like a pretty high percentage.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty big.
I feel like something was happening.
Something definitely. There are some sightings and weird instances here that we'll talk about that like for sure happened.
Oh yeah. I have
and
some theories.
Yeah. Again, the first few I do agree are usually more in any instance like this are more credible because it's like what would necessarily prompt somebody to just randomly contact somebody or report a bizarre sighting of something unless again they heard or saw something for sure.
Right.
But yeah, after that it's like who knows?
Yeah. It
snowballs from there. So the very first reported incident of this, or at least in this, we're going to say the very first, but again. Yeah. So Marjorie By spoke with Arthur Shuttlewood, local journalist. She says that she heard a strange noise on her way to church that Christmas Day in 1965. She described it initially, and this is really creepy for some reason.
Yeah, it freaked me out.
As, quote, like branches being pulled over gravel.
Weirdly specific.
Yeah.
Like
a lot of the examples are weirdly specific.
Yeah. Like I would struggle to put words to that sound.
Yeah. I'm trying to imagine it right now. It's not a good noise.
No, especially because it seems like it would be coming sort of like almost like disembodied. Like it's not like she heard a branch being dragged over gravel. That would be, like somebody just dragging a fallen branch. So there had to have been something unnerving about it, like it was coming from nowhere or everywhere.
Or it was particularly loud.
Yeah.
So a lot of the information that I got for the specific sightings came from somebody sort of summarizing / quoting from Arthur Shuttlewood's book that he wrote later on.
Yep.
The Warminster Mystery. I think that may be one of his several books about this. I'm not totally sure, but that is for sure a book that he wrote. So part of his description of what he heard from her, he said that the way she described it, but then, quote, sudden vibrations came overhead, chilling in intensity, descending on her savagely.
Whoa.
Caught her in a grip of steel, a peculiar droning. Before she had reached the church wall, quote, shockwaves of violent force pounded at her head, neck, and shoulders and numbed her. Helpless, she was pinned down by invisible fingers of sound. Wailing, whining, droning, frightening. How intense is that?
Jesus.
Yeah. So, and this you'll see a couple more times where not only was she hearing this noise, and keep in mind, like, again, this is a really small town. She's walking to church.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, this is something like 6 a.m.
Yeah, 6 a.m.
And it's Christmas morning. Yeah. So this is not like a bustling town, even on a busy day, let alone 6 a.m. Christmas morning.
That's a wildly intense story. Like that is, I mean, I'm sure he's a good writer, so he's like sort of punching it up a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But still, like the gist of that, like being like pinned to the ground with sound.
Yeah. Invisible
fingers of sound. Like that's insane.
That's a lot.
I can't even imagine what that would feel like.
No. So she's freaked out. It like kind of said something about her like having a hard time getting to church because I think she was just like, what is happening? I mean, maybe physically having a hard time.
You'd want to like go to church and like pray to God because you just like, you're like, shit, like what did
We're
I just
not even
experience?
religious people.
What kind of supernatural bullshit did I just stumble into?
This is not good. So again, this was that first article was referencing her story. And kind of after that was shared, like very quickly they got like 30 some odd people being like, yo, I had weird things happen to me too.
Right. So the takeaway from that I got is like it's simultaneously very like electrical sounding, like the sort of like crackling or like gravel noise would be like a crackling electricity, and like the presence of like really strong sound, like sound waves and like sound pressure. So it's not, I don't know. I don't feel like we've had a story quite like that before where there's been sound has been a main component, especially something so physical and visceral.
No, the only previous topic that came to mind was the Taos hum. But even that was a like consistent noise.
Low frequency.
Yeah, very low frequency, almost enough that you're like, am I hearing something or not? Is that like coming from a distance? Like these are very much like people being assaulted by sound.
And it's really like the sound becomes physical.
Yeah.
Holding you down.
Which is terrifying.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, and so the thing too is that several other people described hearing similar things that same Christmas morning. So this was, of course, people in like the days and weeks to come that were seeing and hearing things, but there were a lot of people who were like, "Oh my God, yeah, I heard something weird Christmas morning too." And yeah, a lot of people seeing various UFOs, metallic orbs. That sounds like a combination of two different things.
Right.
Saucers and a lot of cigar-shaped spaceships.
Which is interesting.
Some of them were just sightings. Some were just hearings. Some were both, which is kind of cool. And yeah, a lot of them described somewhat differently as far as some were booming, some were droning, cracking and stark, like static electricity type of noises that, again, like the dragging across gravel. So yeah, around the same time as she was walking to church, a man, again, interesting name, Roger Rump.
Nice.
Yeah.
Classic
the
Roger
head
Rump.
Postmaster. Classic Roger Rump. Head postmaster of Warminster. He heard noises that were very similar. His house was also very close to the church. He described it as a, quote, terrific clatter, as though the roof tiles were being rattled about and plucked off by some tremendous force. Then came a scrambling sound as if they were being loudly slammed back into place. I could hear an odd humming tone. It lasted no more than a minute. So he's just like at home chilling Christmas morning, and then that happens.
Right. See, I'm wondering, like, so if there's these like cigar-shaped craft and there's all these like UFOs flying around, unidentified flying objects, is the sound component of it, is that like an active part of it, or is it just like a sort of passive like symptom? The way that like when a rocket's taking off, obviously like the sound and vibration isn't like the main idea. The main idea is lift. So that's just sort of like a so like all this sound, is it collateral damage, or is it like a sonic weapon? Right. You know?
That was my thought too, because question. Typically in a lot of the UFO sighting stories that I've heard, there usually isn't a sound component. If anything, that is a weird thing missing from a lot of them.
Like eerily silent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think, and again, that's kind of why a lot of the stories and a lot of the theories tie into like weird government experiments and military craft, that it's something that they've created to be like a stealth machine, a stealth weapon.
Exactly.
And we talked about that a lot with like Skinwalker Ranch.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Seeing crafts like even just right overhead and hearing nothing.
Except for the chupas.
That's true.
The chupas was that like almost like very mechanical, like chugging or whatever, like
true, like
an old school like jalopy.
Yeah.
Where it's that kind of like really like loud engine.
Interesting.
It's almost like the low tech version.
Yeah.
So I wonder if, I mean, this is 1965. Maybe it was early on in UFO technology.
Yeah, right.
So it was just
like
they hadn't figured out the whole stealth component yet.
Yeah, like we really need to be quieter.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's bizarre. So he had a similar thing. There was another woman, Mildred Heed.
Nice.
Yeah. She was woken in her home at 1:25 in the morning. She said, our ceiling came alive with strange sounds that lashed at our roof. She said the sounds began as if twigs or leaves were being drawn across her roof and then changed to a noise she described as being like giant hailstones. She got out of bed very scared and looked out the window where the night was dry and clear. She also noted a strange humming sound which grew louder and then faded away except for, quote, a faint whisper, a low whistling or wheezing. So again, like very much like something came upon the house, above the house, and did whatever.
Rattled it.
Yeah. And then was like, bye.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting that she like heard it like come closer and then like fade away. So you could, it's that, like the chupas.
Yeah. It's
just like, you can hear the engine coming and going. And so it's like, you know, it doesn't seem to be for any discernible reason. You know, maybe like the whole rattling of the house wasn't even intentional. Maybe it just like was just passing by.
Yeah.
And when it was over something, almost like how like helicopter blades, if you were hovering over something, it's going to cause like a disturbance.
Right.
So it's almost like whatever this craft is, even if passing over a house causes it to like rattle and shake because of the thrust or whatever that's holding it up.
I didn't see anything really mentioned about anybody going out to inspect their roof afterwards to see was there actual physical damage.
Right.
Did it just sound like, is that just the best way to describe those noises? Or like, you know, the guy talking about like the roof tiles or whatever, like was there actually anything changed about the top of the house? Maybe he couldn't. I mean, I don't know how I would get up on my roof.
Right.
Really? So maybe he just couldn't get up there to
and
see.
Like, if you got up there, would you know if something was amiss?
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't really know if I would. So kind of that would be interesting to know, like, was anything actually disturbed physically, or did it just sound really bizarre? And that was just the closest thing they could liken it to.
Right.
I don't really know. Later that morning, this is like another interesting one in the sense that it's not just one person. Over 30 soldiers at a Nook camp about 4 miles from Warminster were rudely awoken by a loud sound. A sergeant told Shuttlewood that the sound was similar to that, and this is like, again, oddly specific, of a huge chimney stack being ripped from a roof and scattered in pieces across the whole of the camp.
Yeah, that's hyper specific.
Again, like,
and not something that like anybody's ever heard ever.
No, but weirdly though, I can kind of imagine it.
Oh yeah, that like very well paints a picture of what that sounded like.
Yeah, which is kind of cool. And so that's an interesting one again, because that was 30 dudes.
Trained observers.
Yeah, trained observers, exactly.
They're supposed to be able to look at something and describe it in as much detail as possible.
Which I guess that makes sense then.
Yeah.
But just, yeah, I'm trying to imagine hearing a noise and then having to give that specific of an example of what it sounded like. I just couldn't.
No.
Don't think I could do that. I feel
wild.
like I have a hard time with that in general, being like, I don't know.
And again, did they find anything physical? Like, was there a broken chimney stack that was found scattered throughout the whole camp?
Which would still be weird.
That would be super weird.
Not saying that if they found it, it would be like, oh, of course, there's a chimney scattered everywhere. But it's like, was there anything actually disturbed? Because that is even weirder of a noise. I don't know which is weirder, actually.
Yeah, all of this is weird.
Is it weird if there was a chimney scattered everywhere? Is it weirder if there wasn't? I don't know.
Yeah.
But just, I can imagine that noise, though.
Yeah, that cool. Like, it's very like satisfying, actually.
Yeah, it's a very satisfying noise.
It's like
probably not
Warminster ASMR.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
ASMR UFO.
Yeah, can I look up like ASMR sound of like bricks, bricks falling on dirt?
Chimney ASMR.
Yeah. I actually really like ASMR though.
I don't have that
sort of like, knock it.
Like tingly feeling that people describe.
Oh, it's so good.
God, and the people who like eat, you hear like their mouth sounds while they're eating is literally my worst nightmare.
There is a whole series of a woman who just eats pickles on camera.
That sounds so awful that I can't even describe it. Gives me anxiety just thinking about it.
It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, because I watched one out of curiosity.
Jeez.
Well, because different pickles have different textures and like crunchiness and all that stuff.
And I'm sure that's delightful to experience as the consumer. But
I did not enjoy it. I didn't hate it, but I was not like, ooh, I want more of this.
No.
I don't mind when some people do like they have like hard candy in their mouth. It's kind of the clicking of the candy against the teeth. It's not so much wet mouth sounds.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's one where like a woman just gets a box of, you can get those boxes that are, it's like, a snack sampler box from a different part of the country or a different part of the world.
Oh yeah.
It was like a candy version of that, and it was candies from Japan or something. And it was just her, I don't even know if it was meant to be ASMR, but it was, because she was just trying all the different candies. And with any like high quality microphone, no matter what, you're going to get that like all the crinkling of the packaging and then the chewing, which again, like is whatever.
Yeah.
But it was very much like that. And it was interesting to watch because it was just fascinating to be like, ooh, candy. But then you couldn't help but hear her eating the candy.
Nope.
No, I'm much more into like tapping noises, things like that. There's some that are really good, like whispering. There are some though, like some of the whispering is part of it is like mouth sounds. It's not wet, gross mouth sounds, but it's just this like if somebody was in your ear whispering, you'd hear like their lips and all that stuff. Sounds gross saying it, but I don't know. If you don't know what ASMR is, check it out.
If you don't know what misophonia is, look it up. That's what I got.
Yeah, we're like kind of opposite spectrums of this.
You get like a tingling sensation. I get a tingling of rage.
Again, though, like check out the tapping stuff.
I've experienced it.
It's fascinating.
Through osmosis on social media. Not intentionally.
See, I remember getting ASMR as like a young person in school. You'd have the person sitting behind you in class and they would like, you'd have like your friend sitting behind you and they would pass you a note or they'd like whisper something to you. And it like, it does, I get why people think that ASMR is like a weird sexual thing because it sounds that way if you describe it sometimes where you're like, oh, like I felt tingly because they whispered in my ear. But it wouldn't matter who it was or what they said. There's like nothing connected to the person.
Right.
Or the content. It's literally just that feeling. Like, I don't even have a feeling. I can't describe it. Anyways.
It's unknowable.
It's unknowable. Chimney ASMR.
Yeah.
So.
Whew, that was a
big
detour.
It was a big detour. So yeah, this whole big flood of reports, specifically from this Christmas morning thing, led to an actual like public town hall meeting. People of the town wanted to know, maybe there's some local authorities that can tell us like, oh yeah,
right,
this was just, you just heard this.
That's what gives us a lot of credence to me, is that it was like enough of a thing that they called like a legit government body together.
Yeah. And people wanted that.
Yeah.
They were like, I think in some way, I would think, I mean, for sure, if I heard some bizarre noise like that, there would be a big part of me that would want somebody to just be like, oh no, oh, sorry guys, like we were just doing some weird experiment or something blew up or I don't even know.
Right. We're testing some weird experimental aircraft.
Yeah. That's what you heard. And then you could be like, oh, okay. Like that day I told you about that I thought for sure that I was experiencing the Taos hum and I was like, what?
Oh yeah.
We had done the episode not too long before that. And then I thought I was hearing this really low frequency rumbling and I was like, oh my God. And I could hear it kind of at home. And then I went out that day and I could hear it and I'm like freaking out. And I think it just so happened there was just like a ton of big construction vehicles out that day.
Right.
One on my street, one near where I was running errands, and I was just hearing that, and I was like probably just really tuning into it because
you were convinced.
I'm like, oh God, this is my life now.
Yeah. It's like unknowable tinnitus.
Yeah. Seriously. And it was a huge relief. Like when I first went outside and noticed that truck and then could kind of be like, okay, that's the sound I'm hearing. I was like, oh, thank God. Like I'm not going crazy. There's got to be some level of that. But probably way worse for these people because they're like hearing something huge and unmistakable, like
destroying chimneys.
Yeah. But yeah, no explanation was offered.
Surprise.
So again, there's a whole flurry now of sightings, hearings. People were saying that their cars were failing after seeing these objects in the sky or lights in the sky, like radios in the car not working or the car turning off.
Right.
Which is a thing. That's a thing if you don't know.
Yep.
Animals acting strangely while the encounters took place, particularly dogs.
Yep. Trust dogs.
Also, dogs. No, dude. Dogs react to UFOs.
Oh, yeah.
They react to cryptids.
Oh, yeah.
Dogs know everything.
That's why it freaks me out when one of my dogs starts like looking up like in the corner of the room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And I look and there's nothing and I'm like, great. Here we go.
Yep. Again, from that scene in Poltergeist.
Yep.
There's like a scene where the dog's just barking like crazy at the wall.
Yep.
It's not cool, man.
Trust the dog.
Dogs know. Yeah, a few people even said they saw actual creatures that they thought were not of this world. I didn't really get much more info on that.
I just saw them described as like figures.
Yeah.
Which I wanted more like detail. There's so much detail in like the sounds.
Yeah.
And no detail in like the extraterrestrial creatures that we're seeing.
Yeah, a lot of detail of the sightings of the crafts themselves, but like I just saw one or two just brief mentions of like, oh yeah, and some people saw figures, and I'm like, what? Like,
that's huge.
That needs more explanation.
Yeah, that's what?
No,
is that a close encounter of the second kind? If you see a creature,
oh man,
I think first kind is a craft. Second kind is a creature. third kind is interaction with a creature.
Yeah, there's
I'm not
many
mistaken.
different kinds if you don't know.
Yeah.
That's a cool. It's
Be
not really a topic per se.
Yeah.
But
a little mini episode on it.
Eventually, once we get our Patreon like really revving,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we'll have more, because our only tier that we have up right now is Close Encounters of the First Kind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it with that theme.
Yeah. That's
We're
good.
cool.
We're
'Cause we're cool.
nerds.
By the way, check out our Patreon.
Oh, yeah.
That was not
Patreon.
on purpose, but that just tied in nicely.
No.
Yeah, so creatures, and then some had like some sort of poltergeist-like activity in their house, which again, no elaboration. Very disappointing. So that's all Christmas Day.
Yeah.
On March 28th, the following year, 1966, right? Got my timeline right here. A man named Eric Payne walking down a dark, foggy, quiet country road around 11 p.m. Again, presumably nobody else around.
Right.
He heard a sound he described as similar to the sound of the wind in the telegraph wires, which is cute.
That is very poetic.
It's cute. The sound increased in intensity, and he was pushed and held down by, quote, a tremendous racket. Like a gigantic tin can with huge nuts and bolts inside it rattling over your head.
Again, very specific.
So specific. And again,
like,
I can totally imagine it.
Yeah. Paints a picture.
I love it.
It's nice.
Very scary, though.
They very know how to like describe sounds, but not creatures.
No, not creatures, not poltergeist activity, but these sounds are in vivid, shocking detail.
Right.
He heard a shrill whining and buzzing, which, quote, nearly drove me mad. He reports that his, quote, head was pushed from side to side, and I might as well have left my arms and legs at home for all the use they were. I simply could not stop this tremendous downward pressure. I crawled round in the road for a bit and then sank to my knees on the grass. Like,
wow.
Whoa, dude.
You're just like chilling, walking on a country road.
Yeah.
Trying to take you home.
Wow.
Had to do it.
Not gonna sing that though?
No. We're in England.
We're in England.
It's not West Virginia.
Not West Virginia, sadly.
Mothman though.
Mothman.
It's coming up a lot.
It just keeps coming back.
Mm-hmm.
No, and for some reason I'm picturing, I don't know why, but I'm picturing this guy like leaving his friend's house. He's like happily buzzed, had like a nice night.
Yeah.
He's walking along just like, oh man.
It's beautiful here in England.
It's a beautiful night. It's like maybe late summer into fall. I don't really know if the climate is the same there, but
sure.
I'm picturing that being the timeline. Although it's not, it's March. Ugh, fuck.
So it's cold.
It's cold.
He's pissed.
He's pissed.
He's like, why didn't he give me a ride home?
Maybe he was not in a pleasant mood. Although again, climate could be different. I don't know.
That's true.
For some reason I was picturing like a pleasantly cool night.
It's probably pretty damn cold.
I would think so, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's near London. So we were in London in November once. And it was cold.
Yeah.
It was like in the 30s.
Jeez.
Damn, so he was probably cold as hell.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's already pissed.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden somebody's shaking a big tin can of nuts and bolts over his head and he's like, what the fuck?
And then he's being held down by sound.
Yeah, and he's crawling around in the road for a bit.
Or somebody slipped him like some psilocybin mushrooms.
Right.
And he's just tripping hard.
He just started really tripping and then he's just, I don't know. And then again, the story kind of, maybe in the book it goes into more detail about how that all resolved. I assume, just like any of these other stories, that all of a sudden it just dissipated and left, which is freakier too.
Yeah. He's like, then get up and just keep walking. Like, whoa, that was weird.
Yeah. Right. What do you do at that point?
Right.
And again, I can see it's like there's always part of me in these types of stories that are surprised in a sense that like somebody has a weird experience, maybe a few people, and it goes to the paper or whatever. And then other people are like, oh shit, yeah. And I'm like, how did you not say something before this? But at the same time, I could see that if that happened to me, I would for sure post on Facebook, which wasn't a thing in the 60s.
Yes.
So I'd be like, what the fuck, you guys? Like, what do you think happened?
Right.
But if I didn't have an outlet like that, I'd probably just tell a couple people that I knew, because I wouldn't want to be like, hey, like person at the hair salon or person at the grocery store, like this fucked up thing happened.
Right.
Because you wouldn't want them to be like, okie dokie.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to just make a discreet call to like somebody to take you away to a mental hospital now.
Right. Especially in the 60s.
Yeah. Who knows? Like, I don't know what the UK was like in that respect at the time, but you know, in the United States in the 1960s, not really a thing that you might want to just say out loud, just whatever, just to be not judged. So I can kind of see that like people need some coaxing to be like, oh yes, okay, I had an experience too. Now it's like safe to come about and say this. But I could imagine that if that happened to you, you just like, you would go home and just be like, I'm just going to try to forget that happened.
Right.
Because what the fuck?
What else can I do?
Yeah, so that's in March. In May, Shuttlewood spoke to a Hilda Hebdige.
Nice.
Yes.
It's a good name.
Who told him about the 3 different times that week, 3 times in a week, that she had witnessed unusual objects in the sky. Cigar-shaped, covered in winking bright lights. They were stationary with no beams or rays and made no noise. They appeared to be very high in the sky and gradually faded as she watched. So, again, a lot of like similar but different stories. These had no noise at all.
I wonder, but if it's way higher up in the sky, if you see like a jet that's wicked high in the sky, you can't hear a sound from it.
True.
But if it flies right overhead, it's very loud and rumbling.
Yeah. So maybe they were just too far away.
Same object farther away.
Yeah.
Maybe. June
3rd, Patricia Phillips called Shuttlewood to tell him of a, quote, brightly glowing cigar-shaped object that remained motionless over the south of Warminster for almost half an hour. It was also seen from the Phillips household by her husband, their 3 children, and a visitor. 2 other Warminster residents witnessed the same, describing it as, quote, twin red-hot pokers hanging downwards, one on top of the other with a black space in between. And also there were 17 people swimming or fishing at Shearwater, a lake near Warminster, who saw the same thing at the same time. So this was seen by multiple people in the same house, neighbors, and people at this lake.
See, that's got to be legit.
They
saw something.
Right? There was something up there, whether it was alien in nature or not.
Right. It was an unidentified flying object.
Exactly. Which, again, we talked about this in at least one other episode, that UFO simply means it is unidentified.
Right.
That obviously is very much tied to aliens and tied to people from other worlds. Something really unusual, but really, like, when it boils down to it, it's just that we don't know.
It could be secret military aircraft.
Yeah.
It could be some weird, like, it could have been swamp gas reflecting off Venus.
Yeah.
Or actually Venus reflecting off swamp gas.
True. Yes. Yeah. We don't know. That's the whole definition. Later that month, June 19th, Kathleen Penton saw, quote, a shining thing going along sideways in the sky from left to right. It glided over quite slowly in front of the downs. Porthole-type windows ran along the whole length of it. To my eye, it was the size of the whole bedroom wall. Enormous. I'm not really sure.
It doesn't seem that enormous.
It doesn't seem enormous, but these windows were lit up the color of yellow flames in a coal fire. It was very much like a train carriage with rounded ends to it. Interesting, right?
Yeah, that is interesting.
No creatures seen in those windows, which is a bummer. Like picturing this nice little alien train, like they're just like, oh, look at Earth.
Like taking photos out the window.
Yeah. Oh, it's cute.
Interesting. I've got some theories.
Yeah. August 10th. So this was like finally more of a connection to the sounds to the UFOs. 3:45 in the morning. Rachel Atwill was woken by a terrible droning sound. Quote, it made the bed and floor shake. I went over to the bedroom window and looked out. Between the 2 bungalows opposite, about 200 yards above the range of hills beyond, was a bright object like a massive star. I have never believed in flying saucer stories, but I cannot describe it as anything else. It was definitely domed on top and was huge in size, an unwinking light of uncanny brilliance. It hung there in all its glory and did not frighten me, but the awful noise it made did. So this happened, she said this was like 25 minutes by her estimate that this was happening, but none of her neighbors had any similar stories. She said the humming began to reduce in volume and the UFO began to flicker, then the noise stopped and the UFO disappeared from sight. But she described more about how upsetting the noise was, how she, quote, felt there was a tight band of steel around my forehead towards the end, a pounding and a hammering in my eardrums.
Jesus.
So again, like, very weird, like, factor to the story.
Pressure and sound and, like, yeah, again, just like
unusual.
If you think about sound as being like waves and waves of pressure, it would make sense that if there was like one continuous sound sound that was coming from this thing, putting pressure on her head like that, it could conceivably, give her like a wicked headache and feel like a band pressing on your forehead, like, because it's the air is constricting her head.
Yeah. Just crazy. Like, just not a usual thing for UFOs.
No.
And then, did you hear about the explosion sound?
It rings a bell.
Yeah. So August 17th, like, again, a week or so after her experience, a detonation noise that rocked houses in the town of Warminster's Boreham Field housing estate.
Yep.
Residents, okay, so this is like the one for me. Definitely that other one where the people at the lake saw it too. And I think definitely those first few like the Christmas Day experiences, because it was just so many people describing similar things.
In various spots.
But this one for sure was something. So the people in this housing estate, they could feel the explosion underfoot, described as, quote, the biggest explosion I have ever heard. One woman said it sounded like the gas main opposite them had blown up with a tremendous roar. It was likened to the sound of a building being demolished. And there were even a few broken windows. So, like, for sure something happened.
Oh, yeah.
One of them said that after the sound itself, he ran outside to see, quote, a monstrous orange flame in the sky. It was shaped like an electric bulb. By its light, I clearly saw the hills. The light faded, but then what appeared to him as a great ball of smoke with a, quote, funny yellow core floated down from the hills, crackling and hissing whenever it touched grass or trees. Another witness described its golden heart as well, how it was very large and shining. It settled in the road and, quote, gradually dispersed in straggling wisps with a fiery center burning out as it did so.
Wow.
And Shuttlewood spoke to the officials at, like, the nearby school of infantry. There was, like, another barracks nearby, and everybody was like, nope, don't know anything about that.
I mean, as they would if it was like a secret government.
They for sure would.
Weapon.
So that doesn't really say anything. Except that whatever, if it was something to do with them, that it was something
very top secret.
But that, I mean, there's no doubt. People, like, there's several people in this housing, whatever, I don't know what that, can't describe it.
Yeah.
Or can't imagine it. But, I mean, broken windows, people seeing, like, this giant flame, like, that was for sure. People were not.
Something happened. Something blew up.
Something blew up. Something happened, and it was weird.
It sounds like a mistake almost. Like say they had an experimental aircraft, and it malfunctioned.
Yeah.
Some giant explosion.
Yep.
My initial thought was like a nuclear explosion, but it sounds like there wasn't a mushroom cloud or anything like that. So
right.
I guess it could have been a very, very small nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
But
something exploded.
Yeah.
For sure. So that was kind of a big, I guess not really the end of it, but that was like a big sort of bang towards the end of the sightings.
Ew.
Ew. There were also, again, no explanation, no, like, I wanted more on this, but reports of strange sounds killing flocks of pigeons. Give me more about that.
Right.
It was just kind of like an afterthought.
Rodents turning up, like with like holes in them that were like large puncture wounds.
Yeah.
Like what?
That everything
like
that I've wanted.
Side note.
Yeah. How are the pigeons, the rodents, the poltergeist activity, and the figures people saw? Those were all just like, oh yeah, and
I'm
like, dude,
if you put all that together too, it sounds a lot like Skinwalker Ranch.
It does.
Poltergeist activity in the home.
There's a whole lot of shit happening.
Animals turning up dead for unexplained reasons.
Yeah. Yep. Specifically, like people seeing multiple types of UFOs.
Yep.
For some reason, even just the like description of the porthole, like windows.
Yep.
That like it is very reminiscent of that. Which again, ley lines. Mm-hmm. We're gonna do an episode about ley lines. Yep. Pretty positive. There's a ley line that goes through or near where Skinwalker Ranch is. Yep. This is a whole thing. Mm-hmm. So just bizarre. It's a bizarre collection of weird shit where it's not. There are lots of stories like this that are. Mothman again is a good example of a small area, a relatively small chunk of time, but people generally seeing the same thing with some variations, but like mostly the same. But this being like some people just heard a sound, some people saw an explosion, some people saw orbs, lights, UFOs, figures, animals dying inexplicably, animals reacting weirdly. I mean, it's just everything rolled into one is really bizarre. This is actually like one of those topics that when we found it because we were like something Christmas related, which is kind of hard. So
it
like,
is weirdly.
Maybe not surprising, but kind of surprising for just like something that happened around Christmas. Not really a thing. And we found this one and I was like, okay, whatever. And then getting into it, I'm like, oh shit, this is way more interesting than I ever imagined.
Yeah.
So, of course, a lot of people tried to set up cameras and get proof of these UFOs. That never works. But one resident, Gordon Faulkner, claimed that he actually got a photo. He's a local factory worker. He sent Shuttlewood a picture that he claims was a UFO. It was published in the Daily Mirror, which is a British tabloid that still exists. And he would, of course, be interviewed by many reporters. He seemed like he was really into it, which, of course, made people doubt his credibility. Right. I'd be into it.
Oh, yeah.
If I took a photo of what I like truly believed was a UFO and people were like psyched about it, I'd be really jazzed about that.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
There was a picture that I was really hoping was the picture because it was, I actually don't even know for sure if it was a Warminster thing, but it was like a dude kind of like posing on a truck. And it's like, it's very much like an old fashioned looking photo.
Yeah.
But instead of like a UFO behind him, it's like a weird dark orb in the sky.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like, and I was like, oh man, if that is the photo, like, of course he's jazzed about it because it's him just like sup. And there's like a weird thing behind him. Yeah. But it was a different photo, but still, the photo is cool.
I want to say that photo of that reminded me a lot of the I Want to Believe poster from the X-Files.
Yep.
Like it's very much that like old school saucer shaped, like almost like science fiction movie flying saucer.
It's cool.
Which may or may not take away from its credibility.
Right, I know. And it's like a pretty close-up photo in the sense that the UFO kind of takes up like most of the frame, which is not adding to the credibility either. No. In the sense that there's like not really any context to it. It's not like you can see some obvious landmarks and it's up in the sky, which would be harder to do. It's kind of just like the sky and then
you have nothing to give it sort of like scale.
Exactly.
So it could be, the size of like a toy car, or it could be like the size of a ship, Yeah,
you have no idea. So, but I will include it in our show notes
for sure.
So you can check it out because
I'm sure we're going to post it on social media.
It is a cool photo.
It's wild.
As far as it goes, it's like iconic now.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I would be jazzed too. So I don't think it takes away from its credibility. But obviously anything like that could be a hoax. And a lot of things like that have been proven to be hoaxes. Yes. So not writing it
Take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
It also is not cigar shaped.
Not cigar shaped. No. Which some people did describe saucers and whatever, but still.
The predominant sightings were cigar shaped.
Yeah.
If it had been a cigar shaped craft, I would have been more likely to believe it.
True. Because most of the photos you see are the more classic saucer shape.
Yeah.
Occasionally some of the triangles.
Yeah.
There were no triangles here.
I definitely saw some photos of people who I think it was after the whole Warminster thing. People who had made like a replica of that shaped craft.
Interesting.
So they were like hammering, like if you took like a sheet of steel and hammered it into the shape of a UFO. And, it's just these like two guys like in a workshop.
Yeah.
So I think it was like an homage to it almost, but it just showed how easy it would be to fabricate something that would look like that.
Oh yeah, super easy.
So take it for what it is.
Take it for what it is. So yeah, the frequency, as again is often the case with this, decreased pretty quickly. But the town really embraced their new reputation. There were like UFO themed businesses that opened, including like a bed and breakfast. And like you said, they had been called the Roswell of the UK.
Reminds me a lot of Roswell.
Yeah.
Because Roswell's very aware of its history.
Oh, yeah.
And cashes in on it.
Still, yeah. Sometime in October 1967, so about 2 years after the peak of the hype, 2 local police officers claimed to have seen an aircraft over the town of Devon, about 2 hours from Warminster. Convinced they had seen a UFO, but then that was like kind of, I think there was like a tiny flurry after that, but then that was it.
Right.
And then the mid-1970s, crop circles began to appear in the region out of nowhere. Many folks, of course, tied this to the thing. Others tied it to Stonehenge, again, very close by. And some thought it was just a publicity stunt by the residents who were like, no, don't forget about us. And were like going to do something to get back onto the radar.
Right.
But again, that was kind of like a very short-lived thing, crop circles, and then that's kind of it. Haven't really been any other mass sightings in Warminster since then, though some people do still claim to see things.
Yeah.
There was a video uploaded in like June of 2017 of a resident that lives around. So there's a Clay Hill, Cley Hill. I'm actually not even sure it was pronounced Clay.
That sounds right to me.
But sure. Which is like where a lot of the original encounters were reported, that shows an odd light in the sky kind of like repeating a circular. Did you see that video?
I saw that. It almost looks like if you put a firework on a bike wheel and then you were
Yes.
spinning the bike wheel.
It's an intense video.
It is. That's
honestly.
wild. There's there again. It didn't look to me fake. It looked like they were something in the sky.
There was definitely something. Reading about it a little bit, it did. So that one of the videos that I watched was like uncovering the truth, but it actually like really was uncovering the truth, kind of, because it was like, here's this video, and then here's some examples of what it could be that were. One of them was a kite with fireworks behind it, which I did not know was a thing.
That sounds incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, sounds really bad.
Yeah.
And then one of them was a remote controlled plane with fireworks.
Interesting.
And showing those two videos, and they were during the daytime, but still, you could imagine at nighttime it would have looked like that. Apparently, I can't remember the name now, but there is also some like company or organization or something that does these plane stunts, like actual planes that do things like that, like weird light show type of things.
Right.
And you could see that if that had been going on a distance away, that if you saw that from your house, that you'd be like,
what the? I know I would be like that.
Yeah, I would absolutely be like, that is something crazy. So whatever, there's still people who are like, shit's still going on here.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, the Clay Hill has some folklore attached to it. Not related to UFOs, but related to the devil. Whoa. Yeah. There's a legend that says that the devil himself, angry with the people of Devizes, it's Devizes, another small town in Wiltshire.
Nice.
The devil had gone into Somerset to fill a huge sack with earth, and he was intending to drop it on this town of Devizes to bury it. He was like pissed at them for some reason. On his way back, he paused on the road near Warminster and asked an old man the way. And the old man was like, fucked if I know. I've been walking around forever and my hair's gray now. So the devil was just like, ugh, and just dumped the sack out right there. And that's what formed Clay Hill, is the folklore.
Okay, so where do we even begin to unpack that? Like, the devil doesn't know where things are. That's the best he can do to like destroy a town, is to drop a giant bag of fucking dirt on it. He had to ask some old man, and the old man's been wandering so long that his hair turned gray.
Yeah, couldn't find it.
England is not that big. You'd hit water and then turn around and go back the other way. You'd find it. If
pretty much all these places, I'm like, oh, I wonder how far, and it's like 10 miles.
Exactly.
Everything's close. Yeah.
What a bizarre, God, what a weird.
I know.
Weird folklore.
Yeah, but apparently, like, odd lights in the sky and encounters with spirits have been reported there for centuries. So this is supposedly a weird ass area.
Interesting, because before all of this, it was sort of like connected to Stonehenge.
Yeah.
And then all of this stuff happened. Now it's more of like a science fiction UFO sort of bend to it, but
which is cool.
It was originally sort of like magical, or like magical with a K in it. You know what I mean?
I was gonna say that.
Magic.
Whoa. Yeah.
So it's interesting.
It's cool. So there's a mural that was done in 2015 for the 50th anniversary.
It's pretty cool.
Done by a secret artist. Wow. Yeah, was organized by the Warminster Information Center, and that's center with a TRE and not a TER.
So British.
It's English. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, and it's on the old police station wall by the center itself, if you happen to live near Warminster.
Nice.
Go scope it out. And then, there's some books. History of a Mystery, 50 Years of the Warminster Thing by Steve Dewey, who is like obsessed with the Warminster Thing, because he grew up in Warminster, and he has two other books. Well, he's got a bunch of books under his belt, but two others. One called In Alien Heat, The Warminster Mystery Revisited, that he wrote in 2005.
It's a weird title.
And one called UFO Warminster, Cradle of Contact, in 2012.
Whoa.
There's also, I thought that was weird initially, but then, so Clay Hill is one of the spots that were a lot of sightings. There's also a Cradle Hill.
Oh, okay.
So initially I was like, what the
That's
fuck,
very
dude?
like intense.
Yeah. But those were still, he's got at least 3 books about this particular flap.
Huh.
And then he's got like some fictional novels and stuff too.
Nice.
Yeah, I got really into this guy for some reason. And there's a podcast called Unresolved, which is oddly similar to Unknowable.
That's one of us bit the other one's name.
Yeah. I swear we did not know that.
No.
I swear we did not look at any other podcast to make our name.
We just Googled Unknowable to see if it was already a podcast, and it wasn't. So
that was it. We literally were just like, what's another word for unknown?
Yeah.
Or something like a similar word to that. Like, what's another word for unsolved?
Well, we were trying to figure out like what will unite our podcast. Like, what will we constantly talk about? You know, we threw out ideas of like maybe like alien or cryptid, but we realized that it was going to bounce around a lot.
Yeah.
We wanted to keep it open so we could always have fun and interesting topics to talk about. The thing that unites all of our shows is that there's an element that is unknowable to every single one of them, where there's no clear answer. Which is why we will never do a flat Earth episode.
Exactly.
Because the Earth is round.
The Earth is round.
I want to make that clear.
Very clear. Because we, again, got some flat Earth enthusiasts.
We gained a lot of followers from the Mud Flood episode.
Yeah.
Welcome. We would like you to come into our fold and listen to our episodes.
Yes, we would.
But I'd have to say, the Earth is round.
The Earth is very round.
Sorry to break this to you.
And it's proven. Yeah. It's known.
We should be moving past this. We got bigger shit. We got bigger fish to fry right now than trying to prove that the Earth is round.
The Earth is not flat, dudes.
Yeah.
But
the Earth is round.
The mud flood might have been real. Probably not, though.
I don't believe in the mud flood.
Even that. But still.
I'm sorry.
It's unknowable.
But it's unknowable. Technically, I guess it could be true.
It could be. But I swear we did not take our name from Unresolved.
No.
But they did an episode about a year ago. There's also a podcast called Sofa King. Sofa King.
Nice.
Actually interesting. I looked up there because I was like, they did an episode on the Warminster thing. And looked at their other episodes and they kind of just talk about whatever.
Nice.
So that was interesting. It was like, there were definitely some, they actually did an episode on the Fresno Nightwalkers.
Nice.
Which we did. And the Warminster thing. And they had some other like, unusual paranormal stuff. But then they also just had rando topics.
Nice.
They did an episode in September. There's a documentary from 1990 about it called The Warminster Thing. So, yeah, just, some pop culture references.
I had never heard of this until we started recording.
Either. I hadn't even, the name wasn't even familiar.
No.
I remember we were just looking up Christmas Day. And it was I feel like we just found some list on, some BuzzFeed or similar site.
Listicle.
Yeah. It's now the second time that the word listicle has been used on this podcast.
I'm very sorry.
But yeah, and we were like, ooh, weird things on Christmas Day. And this was just one of the ones, and we were like, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Take that, Krampus. Everybody was just freaking Krampus on Christmas.
We almost did Krampus.
We did.
And then I feel like Krampus is a little too, I don't know. I feel like you could get real deep into the world of legends and folklore.
Yeah.
Where it's not like, maybe I guess it's technically unknowable, but really there are a lot of things that really are just stories and aren't actually like somebody saw Krampus fucking their mom.
Is that a thing? Is that part of the Krampus legend? I'm so confused. I have to admit, I don't know anything about Krampus, so okay. I got
really lucky.
100% willing to believe that was part of the Krampus legend, and was shocked and appalled.
I gotta make a note to turn that into an audiogram. I'm crying right now. I have an actual tear in the corner of my eye.
Wow.
Woo!
Merry Christmas,
again,
everyone.
partly for Gray's face. Pure shock.
Shocked and appalled.
Gray's also very tired right now from a hard day at work. So
it's been a day.
His reaction, I think, was like a little subdued from what it would have been. But I could still see the
Again, I was fully willing to accept that was part of the Krampus legend. I was there. I didn't understand. But I wanted to believe.
Oh, man. But yeah, no Krampus.
No Krampus.
We decided not to go down that route.
So can we talk let's talk theories onto what was happening here in Warminster, because that was kind of what stuck out to me. I almost instantly formed an opinion of what I thought was happening.
Of course you did.
Of course I did.
And I have no theory.
Nice.
Of course. But so the only two things I wrote down in my theory section of my notes were misidentification of military aircraft and experiments and mass hysteria.
I'd say it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah.
Here's my theory, okay?
Yeah.
Roswell, the United States, I consider to be the foundational sort of alien contact with modern humans. My theory is that us in the United States testing the atomic bomb in the desert in 1945 was a beacon to other galaxy-faring, not nations, but civilizations that we have reached a certain level of intelligence, like, come meet us. They fly here, say it's 2 light years away. They arrive here in 1947. Something crashes. We recover a craft, and we reverse engineer some sort of propulsion system from this crashed aircraft. So I don't know how long it takes, 5 years, 10 years to reverse engineer something and build it.
Right.
So that puts us at about 1957 in the United States. Test it, fly it. We have a special relationship with England. So say after 10 years of us having like proprietary sort of like alien technology, we decided to share it with England. And then say, you know, if we reverse engineer it by 1955, you know, we have 10 years of supremacy, puts us at 1965 or even 8 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So then we give that technology to England. They make their version of it. And at first, it's not super well made. So like, for example, that woman who saw what looked like a train car with portholes in the side of it, that sounds very much what you would start with. Like, you have this propulsion system that can have a craft that hovers. So, you know, you're in the 1960s, you're like, let's just take this old train car, throw some portholes on it, throw this propulsion system on it, and fly it around and see what happens. If you look at a map of military bases around Warminster, the one that's the closest to Warminster is just like a barracks. So there's no airfield associated with it. And so they wouldn't be testing experimental aircraft. But there is a few like aviation centers and airfields relatively close. You know, like England's a small country. So even if it's, you know, 10, 15, 20 miles away, if you have this revolutionary propulsion system that's extraterrestrial in nature, what's 15 miles?
Right.
So they're flying it, they're testing this out, and they're flying it over Warminster for whatever reason. Maybe it's because it's a small town. They want to see what people think of it. Maybe they have some kind of cloaking device that they think is going to work, but then it doesn't. And so they're just flying it around, low flying to see what they can do. And progressively it gets better as they're going and as they're doing test runs. And then it becomes more stealthy. They start to fly it higher up. And so the sort of like sound that is pinning people to the ground and like this weird crackling noise that they're hearing is a symptom of this extraterrestrial propulsion system that, I don't know, manipulates gravity in some way and causes the crackling noises, or maybe it like manipulates electricity, or who knows how it works.
Right.
And so we're hearing this weird crackling noise, and that's why like the sound is such a big part of this. Maybe it has a visible cloaking device, but not a sonic one. So it would still sound really loud, and, you know, like planes back then were super loud too, whereas they're more quiet and stealthy nowadays.
Yeah.
And then either it gets good enough that people stop noticing it, like the technology of stealth gets good enough that people stop noticing it, or maybe they stop testing it in Warminster, maybe it moved on somewhere else and they start testing it over the ocean or something. Maybe they tested it over Warminster because if they crashed, like that giant explosion that they heard, they wanted to be able to recover the aircraft and not have it like fall into the ocean or lose the pilots or something. So maybe that explosion that people heard and that fireball that fell in the middle of the road was one of the experimental aircraft exploding.
Yeah.
Which is why they didn't hear anything about, oh, what was that giant explosion near your town? Oh, it's nothing. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Because it's a secret government sort of like test.
Exactly. That's pretty solid.
That's it. That's what I got.
Because for some reason, one of the few stories like this that I've read where I really didn't get weird, like I didn't get vibes of alien from it.
Right.
Maybe because of the lack of, like, it seemed like maybe there were just a few people who were like, oh yeah, I saw figures too. Again, right. I haven't read the journalist book. So I don't know. Maybe if I get into that, again, we would love to get really like fucking eyebrows deep in some of these topics and read all the books and like watch the documentaries.
Right.
The reality is that we both have other jobs.
Yeah.
And things going on, and I would love to just like spend hours and hours and hours on these topics and do every possible bit of research that we could. But the trade-off of that is that we have like, you know, multi-part episodes for every fucking topic.
Yeah.
And
too
B,
much.
I mean, that's most of it, but B, we just don't have time.
Yes.
So maybe in the book, there are more detailed, like, explanations of what people saw as far as figures go.
Right.
But from what I read through, which seemed like a whole shitload of stuff,
Yes.
there was really no other mention besides, again, just a little kind of offhand comment of like, oh yeah, and some people saw figures. So there really wasn't a whole lot making me feel like this was something otherworldly.
Right.
It really had the feel of something government-centered.
Yes.
That was some type of experiment. It really had that feel of the animals weirdly dying.
Yep.
Dogs reacting weirdly. Again, that can just be from the sound quality of these weird,
right, like how a dog
crafts.
whistle, we can't hear a dog whistle, but dogs can pick up on it.
Exactly.
Could be something like that.
Yeah. And still just the feel of the government testing something out and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't, which again I think would probably go over better in a small town. Maybe I don't know the exact geographic specifications, but potentially a place where there's a little bit more space to move around and not a big city.
Yeah.
And just, seeing what works and what doesn't, and then, being able to figure out from these reports from people of what they're hearing, what they're seeing, and kind of tweak as they go to be like, oh shit,
right,
still too loud. Like, oh shit, like, yeah, this thing exploded.
Yeah.
Whoops. Like,
maybe that was the end of it.
Maybe that was the end of it. That's why stuff really died off after that. And I do think in most of these instances that there is some level of mass hysteria, just in the sense that there's always going to be some supposed sightings that are not legit.
Oh yeah.
There are going to be people who just want to go along with it, or even like maybe people who aren't full on making stuff up, but who see something slightly weird and they're like, oh, definitely a UFO too.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah. So I'm sure there were some sightings that were just people getting excited, and they had been seeing this stuff in the paper, and they had been seeing this topic blow up in the town, and the town become known for these UFO sightings. And so they wanted to jump on board in some way, whether it was intentionally deceptive or not.
Yeah.
But it just had more of the feeling of government experimentation to me.
It's very terrestrial in nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really reminded me of an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine where they're at this training scenario, and there's and maybe this actually exists. I assume that it might, but it's a thing that one of the characters uses. It's like a targeted sound wave machine that you can use to like disable somebody from a distance. And it's like a very narrow beam type of thing that you can point at somebody, and it like, you can't hear it, but they can hear it.
Right.
And it reminded me of that, where people were like, just, one person. I mean, people heard weird things, but as far as the people who heard a sound that actually pinned them to the ground or like disabled them, it was just individuals, not huge groups being like, mashed to the ground. It was just one person at a time.
Right.
So it's kind of like, did they maybe have these cloaked crafts that maybe intentionally, maybe not, were kind of focusing a beam of sound like that on one person?
Right.
I've
heard, that's what I was thinking too, is that it's some sort of like sound weapon.
Yeah.
There's definitely been, I think currently the United States military actually has, looks like a giant radar dish that beams sound at somebody and it incapacitates them from the vibrations.
It's fascinating.
Or, Google the Cuban embassy attack in like 2017 or something, 2016.
Yep.
Where people heard this weird noise and it caused them to become like physically ill, and they think it was like a sonic attack. And the same thing happened in China, in like a U.S. diplomatic sort of like neighborhood where a bunch of U.S. diplomats lived, expats. Same thing, like a sonic attack. So
it's terrifying.
Very terrifying, especially because we still don't know what happened in either of those circumstances, or at least the public doesn't know.
Exactly.
I'm sure somebody somewhere knows.
Somebody knows.
The smoking man knows.
Smoking man always knows.
He's watched presidents die.
Oh, dude. Still one of my favorite quotes.
It's a great line.
I like him more than I should.
Oh, yeah.
In that show. It doesn't help when they do like his background episodes and scenes and stuff. I'm like, oh man, like the one where he's trying to get that stuff. We've talked about this before.
Oh, yeah.
This is like definitely been like, you could probably pick this exact conversation out of a different episode, but man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, it feels very much like that to me.
Yeah. I agree.
Whether it was as like calculating and exacting as it seems, or if it was kind of like some of these experiments do sometimes seem like they're just kind of bumbling their way through.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, does this work? Oh shit. Oh, and then they try it for a while and then move on. And again, they're moving on somewhere else.
Oh yeah.
They're not stopping. They're just like, okay, enough fucking around with this one town. Like they're going to start catching on soon.
Exactly.
Which maybe again is part of why this kind of thing happens in smaller towns, because it's much more easy to be like, oh, they just all got caught up in mass hysteria. This is just like, this is obviously crazy. Like plausible deniability. You can always say,
oh yeah,
they're, they don't have any proof.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
definitely got more of that feel. So I do think it's cool that the town has this UFO reputation. I do always like the idea of it being aliens, and it being government conspiracy is still unknowable because they're never going to fucking admit to that.
Oh yeah.
But it definitely had more of that feel to me.
Me too. I agree. The proximity to Stonehenge is interesting.
Yeah.
The whole ley line theory. And maybe there is something to that. Maybe it was. I mean, we've talked about sort of slipping between dimensions before. So maybe this was some kind of craft that was in an alternate dimension and slipped into our dimension for a second, or maybe even just the sound waves carried into our dimension. And so people were hearing and experiencing that without the physical object being in our dimension.
Right.
So maybe it was maybe the craft was trying to track something down, or it was just an accidental sort of slipped between the boundary between our reality and the next reality.
Yeah.
Or, who knows?
Because again, that's been part of our theories before, as far as just kind of things becoming really thin for a while, things slipping in and out more easily.
Yep.
Hence why, again, Mothman
Bigfoot
being a thing for a while, Bigfoot being a thing for a while, there being flaps of things, or certain things, appearing in one part of the world and then appearing somewhere else later on. Just like, the veil becoming thin and then going back to normal. And so things are just like, whoops.
Yep. Talked about that in the national park disappearances as well.
Yeah.
Bodies
Triangle.
slipping into another reality for a moment and then coming back into our reality.
Yeah. Dyatlov Pass.
Yep.
A lot of these topics have very similar.
Dyatlov Pass too, the idea of infrasound too.
Yeah.
The feeling of dread that's caused by a sound.
Yep.
So maybe whatever this cigar-shaped object that was flying around Warminster, maybe the sound that was pinning people down was also an infrasound that was causing that feeling of like dread and like terror.
And again, the person with the Dyatlov Pass that had the inexplicable damage to their body. Maybe it's just some very strong sound assault.
Sonic weapon.
Yeah. So a lot of things happening here.
Yeah.
This will definitely be something that'll come up later when we talk about ley lines, because it's, like we said, it's very close to a ley line. So if you don't know what ley lines are, just
stay tuned.
It'll be maybe this year.
Yeah.
Next year.
2020.
Woo. Start of the new decade. But yeah, so that's the Warminster thing.
Very interesting.
Again, definitely a topic you'd get deeper into. You could check out the book or watch the documentary.
Yeah.
But let us know what you think. Do you think it was aliens? Do you think it was something else? Do you think it was government? What do you think?
Hit us up on social media.
Yeah. Find us on Instagram at unknowablepodcast.
Yep.
Find us on Patreon.
Yep.
Become a patron.
We've still got some stickers available.
We do have stickers available. We just got stickers recently,
which is pretty exciting.
They're awesome. We've sent out a bunch.
Yep.
One went to Australia.
Nice.
That was cool. And yeah, we got a new print in the works right now, which will also be a t-shirt.
It's coming
very soon, which is really cool. I just started a YouTube channel for us to get our episodes on YouTube.
You'll actually be able to see our faces.
Yeah. At some point you'll be able to see our faces. For now, it'll just be the actual episodes, but you will see our faces at some point.
Yep.
We are going to have a Google Voice number soon.
Yep.
Which is for a specific episode coming up that we won't say yet.
Yep.
But it's also just going to be a thing for you to call in with topic ideas. You can just call us and tell us that you love us or that you hate us. Whatever. You can ask questions.
Yep.
Man, we've got a lot going on right now.
We do.
We're going to have a contest happening soon we just hit 10,000 downloads. So we're going to have a contest to celebrate. And we're going to be giving away some pretty cool stuff, some of our own stuff.
Yep.
Print by Gray. We're going to have a sticker, but we're also going to have some items from some really cool sellers.
Yeah.
So definitely keep an eye out on our Instagram for that. And man, I can't even think of all the things we have going on.
2020 is going to be a big year.
It's going to be huge. So yeah, keep an eye on all of our shit.
Yeah.
And that was episode 34.
The Warminster thing.
Warminster thing. Merry Christmas. Merry December. Merry Impeachment.
Merry Impeachment.
Merry Winter. Merry Unknowable. Yeah, episode 34 of Unknowable.
Unknowable.
Love you.